experience a watch-along unlike any other. You are about to relive one of the most infamous matches ever through the eyes and ear of one of the all-time greats in professional wrestling. You are watching IREF-B exclusively on Premier Streaming Network. Hi, everyone. I'm Efren, and let's bring in the star of IREF-B, WWE's third man in the ring for over 35 years, Mike Chioda.
Man,
Mike.
I love that. Love that introductory, man. What's up, Efren? How you doing, brother?
How are you, friend? The
I'm really
reviews
good.
are in. IREF-B is a hit.
Nice. That's great to hear, man. And I appreciate everybody tuning in to IREF-B. We have some interesting matches coming up and some interesting stories, man. That's for sure. So I'm glad it's a hit, man. Let's rock and roll. Part two.
Thank you. Part two is right. Thank you to everyone who watched our first episode, Shane McMahon versus Kurt Angle's street fight at King of the Ring 2001. Right. Mike, you were so good.
Appreciate it, Efren. You're right back at you, brother. Appreciate it.
If you haven't watched it, it is available on demand at Premier Streaming Network. Tonight's episode of IREF-B is sponsored by Central States Wrestling. Central States Wrestling, the last independent territory. You can find them online at cswwrestling.com. Mike, we will be talking more about Central States Wrestling in the weeks to come. But tonight, for IREF-B, our match that we will be watching is Candice Michele versus Beth Phoenix from Monday Night Raw 2007. Folks, here are your time codes. Peacock users, you will go to Raw, Season 15, Episode 43. Your time code is 1 hour, 4 minutes, 46 seconds. Again, Season 15, Episode 43, 1 hour, 4 minutes, 46 seconds. WWE Network users overseas, you will go to October 22nd, 2007. Your time code is 1 hour, 4 minutes, 30 seconds. While they bring that up, Mike, I'm going to explain to everyone how the show works again.
Roger that.
IREF-B is a second screen, hyper-focused show. Grab your tablet or get your TV remote and get ready to start and stop our watch along. This countdown clock and I will count you down to let you know when to freeze and when to resume the show. We are going to freeze this match 10 times tonight to analyze the moment you are seeing on screen. During the pauses, I'm going to be asking my questions in relation to the moment that is frozen on your screen and what's being communicated to him from and to his earpiece. IREF-B is a watch-along through the eyes and ear of Mike Chioda. So once again, you should be there by now. Again, your time code, Peacock users, Season 15 of Raw, Episode 43. Your time code, 1 hour, 4 minutes, 46 seconds. WWE Network users, you will go to October 22nd, 2007, 1 hour, 4 minutes, 30 seconds. Mike, are you ready?
I'm ready as it all ever get. Let's do it, Efren. Let's talk about this.
Again, thank you to tonight's sponsor, Central States Wrestling. IREF-B on Premier Streaming Network begins in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, play. Mike, it is October 22nd, 2007, and we are at the Quest Center in Omaha, Nebraska. This is the go-home show for Cyber Sunday, and the match we are about to watch is scheduled for the best 2 out of 3 falls. Lillian introducing. You a fan of Lillian, Mike?
Man, big fan of Lillian Garcia. She's one of the top announcers in definitely WWE's history. And she had quite a run, quite the run there. And she was always on top of her game, man, singing the national anthem. She was always very professional, and it was great to work with her for many years.
Mike, you are looking at model and actress turned pro wrestler and former WWE Women's Champion,
there she
Candice
is.
Michele.
Yes. The GoDaddy girl.
Famously known as the GoDaddy girl, having appeared in a few Super Bowl commercials for the domain buying site. She began her wrestling. She began her wrestling career over 2 years ago and has been a staple in the following types of matches, Mike: bra and panties, pudding matches, lingerie battle royals, fulfill your fantasy, and the Playboy pillow fight. Mike, what can you tell me about Candice Michelle and your relationship with her?
I mean, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, welcome to the stage, Candice. And I'll tell you, and she is an absolute doll, man. She is an absolute doll. Just always just so delightful to work with. Such a sweetheart, always an up-spirited, always very nice to everybody, and just always in a good mood, man. She just you never found her in a bad mood. She was just always, you know, just a sweetheart of a person, man, inside and out. So I mean, I have nothing but love and so much respect for Candice.
Here comes Beth Phoenix, Mike, who has just started her
Yes,
first reign with the women's title.
right,
She is 6 years into the business at this point and left her full time status in 2018. But she was seen in 2023 with her husband Edge defeating Finn Balor and Rhea Ripley at
right,
Elimination Chamber 2023.
right.
Mike, what can you tell me about Beth Phoenix and your relationship with her?
And we were just good friends inside and outside the ring. She was Beth Phoenix was very professional, and to me, working with Sensational Sherry back in the day, and
Ah,
Rockin'
love Sherry.
Robin, to working with so many female talent in the wrestling industry, all the way from Luna to China, and so many. And when you've seen Beth, I mean, she's just look at her in great shape. I thought she was going to be almost the next China. I mean, I wish she would have got that big push like China did, but she's just fantastic work with and inside and out the ring. She's very professional, and she really, really took her job serious in the ring. And so did Candice. And Candice only had a couple of years experience, at this point. And she did a lot of bra and panty matches, and she was at one hell of a diva for the company. And they said they wanted to wrestle. And as you can see here, Candice is doing a great job, which she had just lost the title, I believe, to Beth a few weeks prior to this.
15 days
And
ago.
right, yeah, and she just lost the title, and we came off a European tour, and and here you could see like Candice is, and for a couple of years working as female talent in this wrestling business. There's a her, the Candy
Yeah, it was
Karana,
great. We were
Karana,
18 seconds away.
yeah. So I mean, Candice is rocking and rolling here. They're having a great match. Everything looks good. I mean, the spots are even. I mean, Candice is surprising me. She's doing a hell of a job, and she
Five,
just
4, 3, 2, 1, freeze. The power of Beth Phoenix, Mike.
right. They had the power of Beth Phoenix, man. I mean, she took her work and her inside ring work so serious and very professional, and just like I said, man, just a sweetheart to work with. Very professional, and she has, and I mean, look at her. She's in great shape. She had bigger guns than I did. She had bigger guns than most guys on the roster. So
Yeah.
so and she was looking great, and she was one hell of a diva and wrestler. It was always a pleasure to work with Beth Phoenix. That's for sure.
So, Mike, prior to tonight, the Raw brand has been on a 1 week tour to Germany and England.
Right.
October 8th, they're in Grand Rapids, Michigan for Raw. On the
Hmm.
11th, they're in Germany. 18th, they finish the tour in England. And 4 days later, they're here in Omaha.
Right.
Here's a
Yeah.
partial quote from Candice in reference to this match from a 2018 TED Talk she gave that was called The Authenticity of Fake.
All
Quote,
right.
I was on a 14-day European tour. I'd wrestled about 10 matches in 10 different cities and a few countries when we landed in Nebraska for Monday Night Raw. I was making history in the women's division. I went from doing a pudding and lingerie match to semi-main eventing, and I was trying everything in my repertoire to keep her down. Mike, tell us about the overseas trip.
Yeah, I mean, when we went on these overseas trips, like you said, like from October 8th to the 22nd, and get home on the 23rd. I mean, these were like 15, 17-day runs with us, because we used to have to do a TV, then go overseas, run about maybe 9 shows in a row out of 10 days. We were working every
That's
day.
crazy.
And I mean, it was just, a different city every day, never in the same city. And and at this point, we're coming off the trip, and we had a lot of good shows, packed shows, and working hard, traveling hard. We were partying hard. We had a fair share of partying, and what you do always time. And Candice always rode on the babyface bus, but I wish I rode on the heel bus, but I wish I was always on the babyface bus with Candice. But
There were different buses.
yeah, it's two different buses.
Whoa,
There's the
Watts
babyface.
booking the buses or what?
What's that?
Bill Watts booking the buses if you
Yeah,
had
right.
baby faces and heels on one.
That's it. Bill Watts booking the buses.
Tell me about that.
And that's how we always did it. We always did, like, we always had babyface buses, and the heels were always on the heel bus. So,
Really?
yeah, and I always preferred to, drive on a heel bus, and
Why?
well, I mean, just I don't know. I just felt like the heels were a lot more fun sometimes, but but the babyface bus can get interesting too with John Cena on there, and we used to have so many good times on them bus trips. They used to fill them with beer, wine, alcohol, food, everything for these 3 or 4 hour bus trips every night. And we were coming off a long road trip at that point, coming into Omaha, Nebraska, and we were all beat up and tired, and just trying to finalize, Raw, and then get home for Tuesday. So, and I just remember, being exhausted too at the end of this tour, but here we are at Raw, and Beth, and with the 2 out of 3 falls match with Beth and Candice. I mean, she was going into another match, and before this, at the end of this match, it was about 2 out of 3 falls. It got a little interesting, and that's where I'll explain myself. This could have been maybe one of the worst decisions in my refereeing career in 35 years that I made in this match.
Let's start this up again. Stand by. 3, 2, 1, play. Drops her, Mike.
Yeah, it just drops her right there, and and I mean, she's taking hell of a bump. She's selling everything good.
Mm-hmm.
Boom, there's the first fall right there.
Quick.
It was quick. It was quick.
Mm-hmm.
And then we had to get into the second fall. We didn't have much time in this match either, as well. So and we didn't have much. I think we had maybe about 8 minutes for the second fall to develop. Which
Okay.
which almost was a total disaster. But we'll get
Mike,
into
what's
that too.
we just came back from commercial. What's your routine during a commercial break?
Routine is to let the talent that were in commercial break. We weren't in picture at this point in 2007. So I'm giving the talent, and they'll come back, and I'll get a cue and say, okay, we're going to commercial break in 2 minutes and a minute and a half, 60 seconds. And then I get the countdown from 30 seconds. So they'll hit their break spot, So we hit that finish, and then boom, we go to break, which we're not in picture anymore. So then I'm cueing the talent as we're in break that we're coming back live in 2 minutes. And then, I'll count them down all the way to 10 seconds, 5 seconds, 5, 4, 3. Okay, we're coming back on air. So, and here we are back up.
Mike, I'm seriously impressed with Candice Michele here.
Yeah, I'm very, I mean, she's only been working for a couple years, and really not in full blown out title matches either. She always did, like, the bra and panties matches and so forth, and all these other different types of matches. But here, this was like a serious thing with, getting into a title match, and with Beth Phoenix and everything, best at 2 out of 3. And she's doing a great job for the little bit of time she's been working in the ring. So
2007 PWI Woman of the Year, ending Trish Stratus's 2-year consecutive run with that award. 2007 Most Improved Wrestler of the Year, beating out Jay Lethal for second, MVP for third, and Cody Rhodes for fourth.
Right.
Ranked number. Go ahead.
And look at this. She's hooking the leg when she's covering. She's doing everything right. The drop kick was nice. The selling right there on the elbow. I mean, she was doing a great job in the ring. She was definitely, and look at that. Boom, boom. I mean, she comes back, boom, into the small, roll up, 1, 2.
Bumps right into you?
Yeah, bumps right into me. And she goes back to selling a little bit. And then, they're going home here in a little bit. So, I mean, look at that. Spin kick. That didn't look bad at all,
Is she supposed to win the second fall?
No, she wasn't.
No.
So, Mhm.
Okay, we're 20 seconds away. Candice is going up to the top.
Right.
10, 9, 8, 7,
Ooh.
6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Freeze. Oh, Mike, this is why
Yeah.
we are here. Let's quote Candice from her TED Talk.
Yeah. Go
Quote,
ahead.
I sauntered so tirelessly up to that turnbuckle, and I remember putting my first boot on the second rope, and I swung my other leg over, and my legs felt like cement, and my arms started to shake, but I pushed right through it up to the top. Bam. Mike, I notice in serious moments with wrestlers you are concerned about that you bend over with them and grab them with both hands.
Yeah, that's
What's
correct.
going through your mind right now?
Well, you're always if you can't get both hands, you're definitely trying to get one hand where you're getting your fingers in, and she's, she'll be they squeeze your hand to let you know they're okay. I got a very light squeeze there, and as Beth she was going up to the top. As Beth went to hit that ropes, which I knew Beth was going to hit the ropes and she was going to take the bump there. Um, I looked over at Beth for that quick second because you're as a referee, you're going to get on the heel because that's a heel move. It's a heat move. It's a heelish move, but it's not a disqualifying move. So I mean, at that point, I was getting ready, and I turned my head to Phoenix, my eyes over to Phoenix to get on her real quick, and to get in her face and say, "I'm telling you, don't do that again." Just to reprimand her that she's, that because it is kind of an illegal move, but not a disqualifying move. So therefore, when before I even went to Beth, I seen it the last set, like I seen her take that weird bump, and it kind of like she landed awkwardly. So, and I went over to her right away, and she was kind of dazed. She was kind of out of it. Um, so I was just like, oh my god. So then I knew she was I was like, ah, this has got to be it. So when before we get to the next spot, and I'll explain it, but Beth comes over, and I just told Beth to cover her. So, and at this point, right there, I knew she wasn't, she took a pretty bad fall. She was kind of like dazed from it. So I didn't know if she was really in concussion protocol. I didn't have enough time to check her out like that, but I knew she was kind of dazed. Um, she could have been dehydrated that night, and listening to that, and she could have been dehydrated a little bit because I know we needed to get her water at the end and stuff like that. So it was pretty bad, man. It was pretty bad. And this decision of mine was one of the worst decisions, my worst decision probably in professional wrestling in my career as a referee. I should have called it. I mean, I'd got nothing back from the back through my
You should have
IFE.
called it right here.
I should have called it. I should have called it right there. And I told, they didn't see, and I know JR must have seen more than what I'd seen because I had just a little bit like focused like I said, my attention on the heel hitting the ropes. And she fell so fast. It was so quick that I was like, holy shit, is she okay? Like, and that's why I did. I went
Right.
right over to her, and I really didn't see her like the hitting of the bump where she like just on her shoulder kind of. It was just like boom, boom. She was down. I looked over about it. Whoa. I kind of backed up, put my hands up. Whoa, what the hell was that? It didn't look good. I know that. So at this time right here, I should have just called the match because Beth was going over anyway. Okay, so Beth was going to retain the title that night anyway. So it didn't matter. I should have called the match. And I told Beth, I said, just cover her. And I had no idea she was going to pull her by the hair and pull her out. It freaked me out there. And I just couldn't wait for her to cover and just let's get it over with so I can get some help from the back.
So before we go on, folks, let me tell everyone watching along, the moments we freeze on for the rest of the match are going to come quickly, sometimes with only 4 seconds notice. So keep your remote or index finger on standby, and we are going to start again in 3, 2, 1, play. We're going to have a quick one here in just a second.
Right.
5, 4, 3, 2, 1, freeze.
Yeah. Yeah. At that point, I'm telling her, no, 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 no. And because I seen her grab her arm and then grabbed her by the hair. To me, I don't think Beth knew she was really hurt at that point either. You know, I really don't know if Beth, knew she was really hurt. I don't know if she's seen the way she landed. If she, so it was kind of hard to tell, like, because Beth, Beth wouldn't have done that if she knew she was really hurt at
Did
that time.
she not hear you
So,
or?
well, I know she went over there for me to check on her, and she wasn't completely out of it. She was definitely, her bell was definitely wrong, which is concussion protocol we call these days. And in '07, it's only been a few years since we're coming out of the Attitude Era, and we weren't really into that concussion protocol at that time. Where at that time, did I really have the authority to stop the match? But I should have. I was one of the head referees at the time, even in '07. I should have stopped the match right away, rang the bell. Title still retains to Beth Phoenix. So I mean, it was the worst call in my career because what happens at
Really?
yeah, it really was. It was my fuck up, man. It was there's like 99% of the time you want to take credit at all the good matches that go well and everything. And
Yeah.
people do ask that, how many have you ever screwed up a match? Have you ever done this? I'm not saying I was the reason for her taking the bump the way it happened, and it was just an awkward bump where I think her toes got hooked onto the top rope and she just kind of fell straight down instead of clearing herself. But like you said, she was very tired. She said her legs were shaking, and I think at that point, before that spot, I think she might have been dehydrated already. Working that match, and I know she was worked up going into the match because she had the 2 out of 3 falls with Beth Phoenix. She knows how experienced Beth is, and she's done a hell of a job. Up to this point.
Yeah, she's holding her own.
Yeah, she was holding her own, and it just sucks. But I'm just glad that nothing more occurred from Beth pulling her hair and pulling her out. And I was hoping Beth just covered her there. But like I said, I don't even know at that point. Beth didn't even probably know that she was hurt at that point. So
Meanwhile, on commentary, Jim Ross is imploring you
yes,
twice to
yes,
stop the match.
yes, yes. And it was just such a shock when she, pulled her out. I mean, we had distance in the corner if she just hooked her leg or something, and covered her. But I'm not saying that's Beth Phoenix's fault, because she probably didn't know how bad and hurt she was because she wasn't out completely. She was breathing. She was looking at me. She was like something hurt, So, and I didn't, that's why I said just cover her right now, and let's end this. And so it was my fault. I should have just said no. I should have rang the bell, took that decision on my own. I mean, I didn't get it from anybody in Gorilla to call the match or nothing. I wasn't listening to JR because I couldn't hear JR
Right.
commentate. So I didn't hear anything. Sometimes they get a better view watching it from Gorilla and the monitors on TV or at the ringside with JR, and they're watching everything. As a referee, you're in there looking at the action, your head's completely turning. Sometimes you don't see things that they see. So I mean, when somebody twists a knee or hurts or breaks something, or you know, um, or is injured in the ring, sometimes they see it before I even see it. So I mean, yeah, it's just that was one of the worst calls I ever fucking made in my career. I should have stopped the match, raised Beth's hand, got her the title, and just and went back to attending to Candice.
Let's start again. Stand by. 3, 2, 1, play. Kind of drops her right there, Mike.
I
4,
know, I
3,
know. I was
2,
kind of
1, freeze.
yeah,
Mike, we've
I know.
frozen with you given the X symbol.
X symbol up. I know I was frustrated because I was like, God, I was like, why did she manhandle her like that? Like, just why did she And I'm thinking, I just wish she would have covered her. So I know I said something like, no, no, don't touch her or something, no more, like
Right. You scream
it was
no
just,
and you try to,
yeah,
and you put the X up.
X up right away, man. I knew something was wrong. And so, the X went up, and that means for, the gorilla to go get the trainer at this point. Like now we've talked about this with the IFBs. Like I couldn't communicate. I didn't have no communication back to gorilla. So nowadays and over the years, we started getting communication to talk back to Gorilla because it was very important for the referee to, we're only hearing what they're saying and then they're asking questions, and then, are they okay? Is she, if they're asking, is the talent okay? You raise your arm up. Yeah, that's a good sign. When that X goes up, that's something wrong. That means the talent's injured. So at this point, I was just freaking frustrated. Put the X up, and then that's basically calling for the trainer and a doctor to ringside.
Let's start up again.
Yep.
3, 2, 1, play. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, freeze. Mike, you go to the timekeeper's table and you shout out, "She's hurt."
Right.
And with Candice behind you, still on the ground, you raise Beth's hand to hard camera to signal her victory.
That's correct. Right.
Why?
Well, we always get through it. I mean, I didn't think it was. I didn't know what the injury was. I know she had taken a bad bump. I was just thinking in my head, I hope it's not a neck injury because if she pulled her by the hair and then all this, I should have really stopped that match. I mean, I should have never let it get to that point, and we're always so prone to at that point in my career, and even in '07, we were always so prone. Wrestlers go through so many injuries, man, and it's like Daniel Bryan and Randy Orton. When Daniel Bryan got hurt, he didn't want to give it up. He
Yeah, he
didn't
was
want to give up.
pissed.
He was pissed, and I remember, woof, whatever happened, that night up in Gorilla, he was so pissed, bro. He was cussing Gorilla out, and it was just because he was like, I wrestled with injuries for 15 years, 10, 15 years on the indies, and he was like, and I know you guys, like he was talking to Hunter that day, and I know you wrestled with a ton of injuries, and these guys wrestle with injuries. And when they're hurt in the ring, we were always so prone just to finish the match and then go ahead. But at this point in my career, I should have been. I was very experienced. Uh, I should have called that match right away. I should have called. I really didn't see the full bump, but I should have took it on my own just to call the match. Right there before
But
I should have never told Beth to pull her out to cover her, and I didn't tell her to pull her out. I mean, but I should have never told Beth to cover her.
do you remember the last time you called a match like you say you should have now without help, or had you done it before? Or
You know what? I've never called a match on TV like that
okay,
unless it was scripted.
right.
And I didn't know if I should have took initiative to call the match because I did see her conscience. She was conscious. She didn't lose total conscience at all. She was breathing. She was, her eyes were open. She was just like moaning, like, "Oh fuck!" And I was like, "Oh shit, she's hurt," So, at that point, I didn't know it was her collarbone. I didn't know she would, I kind of know she got her bell rung. I didn't know she was in full blown concussion. And I think she has. So she wound up having a concussion plus broken her collarbone.
Let me ask you: Are you're pretty remorseful about this match 20 years later?
Right.
And I'm seeing a guy who's trained to do what he does, and if the wrestlers aren't telling you to stop, you're not stopping the match. That's
Right.
always what you've done.
That's correct.
After something like this, are you trained more to look for when to stop a match?
Yeah. I mean, we had meetings.
Or had you already been and said, if the wrestler says no,
No, I mean,
I'm
I want to say it was way after '07 and where we were able to take full command and like it was things like this and certain other matches in the ring where guys have been concussed really bad. And at that point, some years down the road, we started getting equipment to talk back to the gorilla because we kept saying we need to talk back because you know we needed a microphone to talk back to gorilla. We can only hear you, but we can't speak, and we had to either relay things to gorilla through the timekeeper. So those were the ones that were the timekeeper at ringside was always being able to talk to Gorilla or the TV truck. So and there was some years later to where we got the equipment to talk back to Gorilla, and we got trained more to take it in our own hands if we see something that's not right in the ring to call the match. So and it happened quite a few years like down the road. I mean, we had just had trainers. I believe we got trainers in like 2000. And I believe Chris Brennan was the trainer on hand, and Dr. Rios was there and he was a very good doctor. Chris Brennan is one of the best trainers in professional wrestling, along with Larry Heck, and Michael Sampson for AEW. And those days, all of there was a lot of physicians weren't around the ring, but nowadays they're always around the ring.
Okay, let's get to that in a second. Let's start again.
Sure.
3, 2, 1, play.
Yep.
10.
I raised.
We're 7 seconds away. Beth's leaving the ring. 4, 3, 2, 1, freeze. Mike, medical personnel finally hits the ring.
Right.
Do you know how long it took from the time you gave the X symbol to the time they came in?
Man, it was quick because I gave the X symbol, and remember, it only took a second or two to rate. I went over to timekeeper and said she is hurt. The title came over to me. I then handed it and got it right out of the ring, and then I had to wait.
19 seconds from the time you gave the X symbol to the time they entered the ring. That's pretty fast.
That's pretty fast.
My question to you is, isn't a doctor always at ringside?
Not in 07. Not in 07. There wasn't doctors in the ringside area. So trainers were always on stand with IFBs, and doctors had their IFBs too. But again, those doctors couldn't talk back to Gorilla. They had radios too as well. But Dr. Rios was, I mean, everybody was rushed out there very fast. And, they started building even some years prior to that and building all the way up to today to 2023. Now they have trainers and doctors sitting at ringside at all times. And they've had that for quite a few years now. Quite a few years.
Would you give the X symbol to ask for help if the doctor was at ringside?
Yeah, because I'd have to let Gorilla know too as well. So, if I'm putting up the X sign, it's, the doc seeing it, he knows what's going on. And Gorilla needs to know what's going on because, like I said, I didn't have communication on my IFB back to Gorilla.
So in matches like ladder matches, Mike, are doctors always at ringside at this point?
Yeah, yes. They're always at ringside and a trainer. So
even in 2007?
Oh no, not in 2007. Like I said, some years later. I mean,
wow.
Even so, after this even happened, we tightened up things too. They started having a trainer there, and then a doctor ringside at some years later. So I mean, they definitely went through a learning process. We all went through a learning process where, doctors needed to be on standby at ringside, and we always had EMTs there. EMTs, the trainers would get every show had paramedics there with an ambulance on standby at every show. That was definitely a protocol.
Let's start up again, Mike. In 3, 2, 1, play. So we're focusing finally on Beth Phoenix away from the injury.
Oh yeah.
We're 15 seconds away from pausing again.
Okay.
Beth raises the title up.
Yeah.
And look at this. 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, freeze. Yes, Mike Chioda, they've replayed this twice, the injury.
Right.
Number one, what do you think happened?
Well, I mean, she said she had mentioned something about her legs were giving out and they felt like rubber or whatever. But when when Beth hits that rope, as that spot's done a million times too. She hits the rope. She kind of goes up a little bit. Instead of jumping out, she went straight down, and her toes kind of got hooked up on the turnbuckle, and that's why she took that bump so weird. at this point, you can't see me in the shot right there.
Right.
But, and I was, my instant reaction when Beth was going to hit the ropes, like as I said, as a referee, man, you go right to the heel and you start getting on that freaking heel and say, I'm telling you not to do that anymore. And you don't never disqualify anybody for doing that in a match, whether it's a tag match or a singles. Um, but like I said, I glanced away and then I caught that last little bit of a bump the way she fell. Like, and it all happened in a quick split second, man. I mean, it just
Yeah.
happened so fast. So, and that's why I just was basically like, oh shoot, she's hurting, but she was still awake, she was still conscious, but I was like, all right, Bet, just cover her. And it
Here,
just went to shits. And that's where I should have called it, but
here's my second
unbelievable.
question, Mike. They've replayed this botch, which it is,
Right.
twice. Why?
Right.
Why keep showing it?
Well, it's she was okay at this point. They knew she was she was alert, she was breathing. She might have got dehydrated, but now at this point now they're dealing with concussion and they're checking her shoulder out. So she wasn't in screaming pain. So to me at first, you know, she was definitely concussed or she was dehydrated, um, near the end of this match. Um, and that could have been that could have been the reason, but I just think the bump, she kind of took it a little bit weird instead of coming out and flipping over. She just kind of jumped straight up and then her toes got hooked, on the turnbuckle. And that's why she took that bad bump.
Let's start again. Stand by. 3, 2, 1, play.
And see, I'll go
That's
right.
a tough
Don't.
shot to
So
watch.
she's still alert and everything. And when I kind of put my finger in her hand, she squeezed it a little bit, and I'm thinking, oh,
15 seconds.
she's not right though. She's not right. And that's where I should have just called it right there, man. I should have never even told Beth to cover. That's my mistake, my fuck up. And probably
5, 4, 3, 2, 1, freeze.
right,
So Candice says her mouth is dry, asks
right,
for water, and
right,
three of you, there are 4 referees in the ring,
right.
3 of you go to get it.
Yeah,
What's she telling you besides that?
no, she's just catching her breath back, and she was thirsty. I remember her mouth was dry or something. She was very thirsty, and that's why I was thinking, when I've heard her say like, her legs were giving out and everything else, she might have been going into dehydration during that match. Dr. Rios is right there, which he was he used to work with us for many
So
years, and he's a fabulous doctor.
we've frozen the shot on
Hmm.
the bow tie doctor, I call him, looking right at the camera. Tell us
Right,
about Dr. Rios.
Dr. Rios is a fabulous doctor. He was kind of I think retired in his other profession with being a family doctor, and he was working for us for quite a few years, and yeah, he was a very good doctor, and we had a very good training staff, and they were there very quickly. They were there quickly.
So he was
So
always on the road with you,
yes, he was on the road
and
with us a lot.
he was the primary doctor to come out
That's
and help.
that's correct.
Okay, let's start again. Stand by. We start again in 3, 2, 1, play. Trying to
Right.
catch your breath
See,
here, Mike.
she's catching her breath here.
Mhm.
She's hurt, dehydrated. Got her bell rung. Get her some water. So I mean, and I remember Doc Rios calling for the ambulance. Because she said, "Oh, and she wasn't in screaming pain."
15
You know,
seconds.
so at this point, I'm just, we're all worried about her tremendously, and she's like, "Look, I just want to lay back down for a minute." Because I'm
5, 4, 3, 2, 1, freeze.
yeah. See, right there, I thought Marty Elias was probably going to give her mouth to mouth. He was all over it.
Okay.
We had Chad Patton out there. I believe that's John Cone to the left,
Right.
and so yeah, it's just we're just we were giving her some space, just wanted to talk to her. We were just keeping her alert. And they always say when you're in concussion, they don't want you to fall asleep or you don't want to be nodding out. So, but she was okay right after that. I mean, it was only a matter of like 30 seconds later that she was kind of like, oh, okay, talking. She was coherent. Like I said, she was never totally unconscious.
So if the viewers want to back it up a little bit to see right before she lies down, the doctor's arm, Dr. Rios's arm is around Candice, and she says, "Let go of it, doctor. You're hurting." Right where the clavicle shoulder, where the shoulder is, and she
Right,
pushes people away, saying she needs to lie down.
right,
Now,
right.
you said you gave her a little space, Mike. Here's my question: You have the bow tie. You have Dr. Rios, the
Hmm.
trainer on the walkie-talkie,
Yep.
and 3 referees surrounding her. 2 of you right in her face. Now, from what I know, most medical professionals ask people to stand back to give the patient room and air,
Hmm.
but you guys aren't doing that. And
Well, I mean,
you're both in the same position as why. So my question is, what's your role at this point that requires you to be so close to her, especially when medical personnel are right there?
well, we're right there, and whatever she needs. She needs water. We're gonna go get it. If she need, and Dr. Rios is calling for ambulance and whatever he wants to relay and what he wants to do, I'm right there listening to him because he's taking control of the situation right now. So, I mean, Dr. Rios is a very experienced doctor, a very good doctor. So basically, I'm right there. Yeah, I know Marty was in there too a little bit. Chad was from the back. Everybody else was giving her distance, because there's only could be so many people talking to her. But at this point, she was okay, and it's not like she couldn't breathe or anything or get air. She was getting air. We were just giving her time to get her wits together and wait for the stretcher to come out.
Yeah, you keep saying you're giving her her distance though, and I
Mhm.
mean I understand she's your friend. You guys are really most medical professionals would ask people to stay back, and
Mhm.
Dr. Rios isn't saying that. I guess
Yeah, but I mean, stay back for what? He didn't have to do CPR. He didn't
that's
have
a
to
good point
do.
too.
I mean, he didn't do CPR. He knew he didn't have to do anything else. It wasn't a cardiac arrest situation. It wasn't. I mean, it was just something where she had her wit. She's talking to us. Yeah, Marty's in there too. You know,
Marty's the
but-
trainer, right?
right. I mean,
Tell us
Marty
about
Elias
Marty.
is the referee right here.
Oh, I'm sorry.
He's the
Who's the
referee.
trainer?
So, at that point, that's a good question. I'd like to see his face. I can't see his
Okay.
face,
If you see him, we'll
but
talk about him.
yeah, we'll definitely talk about that. But
So
I know Chris Brennan was there, and Chris Brennan was. I think he was right away getting the paramedics and getting him to ringside and getting the gurney like through the ramp side because it's a very tight fit down there.
so the trainer on the walkie-talkie right now that we're frozen on calls for an ambulance over over the walkie-talkie. Does that
Right.
always mean the stretcher?
Yes,
Okay.
yes. Well, the ambulance is already there on call, on standby.
Right.
They're backstage right there, and they're actually watching the show too. The paramedics, so they're always told to watch the show, and they're always on standby with the ambulance right there in the back. So
He also loudly calls for the spine board to be brought in,
right,
and a fan screams, "Call a ambulance!"
right, right.
Mike, have you ever told off a fan who was acting
Oh
inappropriately in a
yes,
situation like this? Tell me
oh
about it.
yes. I mean, it wasn't that night you ignore stuff like that, but yeah, it does get you hot when people aren't taking it serious or if they think it's a work and shit like that, and somebody's seriously hurt. So um, yeah, like definitely, I've lashed out the fans. The wrestlers have lashed out the fans being obnoxious or drinking too much or just being an ass. But at this point right here, just I'm just waiting for whatever needs to be done, whatever I can do to help at this point.
Let's start again. 3, 2, 1, play. So if you look at her left shoulder, Mike, you can see the bruising starting to happen. And we will find out later that Candice has broken her clavicle and is
Oof, I
going to
know.
be out 14 weeks.
Whoa, I know. That sucked, man. It really did. She was having such a hell of a match, and and look at her. She's smiling there a little bit. She's talking to me and smiling. And I'm glad. I was just like, I'm so glad she's okay. And I asked. At that point,
20 seconds.
I really didn't even know if there was a neck injury involved. But Doc said, how's your neck feel? She's like, oh, it feels. He was checking on everything. And that's why I was just I felt so horrible. And I there's Chris Brennan there getting the
5,
stretch on.
4, 3, 2, 1, freeze. Mike,
So
talk about
what?
Chris. Talk about Chris Brennan really quick.
I'm sorry.
Talk about Chris Brennan. You mentioned
Yeah,
him.
Chris Brennan. I mean, I seen him down at the. I remember he was down there. He was, as everybody came to the ring checking on Candice, he's making sure he gets that stretcher and gets to the paramedics and gets the stretcher right out there when it was called for. Um, so at this point right here, and you could tell when she kind of goes up, she hooks her toes on that turnbuckle and kind of just went straight down.
Yeah.
And it was just, it was a bad fall. It was a bad fall, man. It was just, bad bump. That's for sure.
Do you remember what the original finish was supposed to be? How it was supposed to end?
She was supposed to take this bump here, and then Beth was supposed to hook her in the finish and give her the finish.
Okay. Miss
So
it or
no, hit the finish. This sets up the finish where she hits the ropes, she takes a bad fall, crashes and burns. Beth picks her up and hits her with the finish.
the fall's
So
supposed to happen, but
right,
not like that.
yeah, and it wasn't,
Okay.
and that's why I should have even told Beth to cover. Like I said, probably 5 times in the show. It was the worst call I ever made in my career.
Let's start again. 3, 2, 1, play. They freeze it here, Mike.
Yeah, you see where her toes gets hooked on the back of
Yeah.
the turnbuckle, and
Mm-hmm.
that's where it was just bad bump. She was just kind of going to go face down, like and crash and burn, and then that sets up the finish. But like I said, we never got to that point, and I mean, and then things happen, So I mean, I'm glad that nothing happened. I'm just glad it wasn't a neck injury. Thank God it wasn't a neck injury because imagine it being a neck injury and then she's pulling her out by her hair. And oh my God, if it was a neck injury, which they're treating, the neck and everything, they really don't know. So they do stabilize it. Now, after this and some years to come, there's John Cone on the left, Chad Patton's out there. Um, so, after years to come, we started taking CPR classes at WrestleMania and we got license and permits for CPR, and stabilizing, knowing how to stabilize the neck until the stretcher gets there, until they apply a neck brace. And see, before here, see how he started to stabilize the neck, and as he's putting the neck brace on, and that's what we were getting trained to for years after this match, and after so many other concussion protocols and certain things, we were getting trained a lot more, stabilizing the neck, until help arrived, and so forth. So, and they're doing everything the right way. Just, she didn't kind of want the neck brace on, but they're like, look, we have to. This is protocol. We have to do it this way. And then there they were taking care of her and taking her off to the hospital.
So Candice says this at her TED Talk. The next thing I remember is barely being able to see Stephanie McMahon leaning over me saying, "Don't worry, your husband is being flown in." I knew this was
Kenji,
real because they
yeah.
never fly your husband in.
No, you're right, Kenji, and
Really?
he's a great guy too. I mean, he worked for the company too. He did a lot of work for the company. He was a chiropractor, and he was one of the best chiropractors in the country. I mean, boy, he would. I mean, I'd had him worked on me for so many times because he's just phenomenal what he does. Yeah, and they flew Kenji in, so it was serious, man. I mean, and still at this point, you don't know if she's maybe broken a vertebrae, something else is dislocated in her neck or somewhere else. So you had to take it really serious at this point. So they flew him in right away.
They finally cut to Randy Orton walking to the ring awkwardly, and
Right,
they go to a commercial.
right.
Mike, you go to the back,
Oh,
and
whoa.
what happens?
Worst fucking night of my life, man. I mean, Vince is there waiting for me. And as I don't know at what point Stephanie greeted Candice, but when I got up there, it was basically, Gorilla was in there, a couple guys from Gorilla. Vince was there and he was waiting for me, man. And I mean, he fucking reamed me out. Why didn't you fucking stop that fucking match? Why didn't you stop it? What the fuck, Mike? You're one of my best fucking referees. Like, I mean, he was fucking so hot. I thought he was going to fucking hit me, So, I mean, And I was sitting there going, Vince, I'm sorry, man. That's my fault. It is my fault. I wasn't going to put no heat on nobody else. It wasn't my fault the way she bumped or how she bumped or took the fall. It was my fault because it was just like, God forbid, if it was a neck injury, why did I tell Beth to cover her? And I could have just called the match. I could have just called it. Beth retains the title. No, no further, whatever. And at that point, like, I was just so worried. I was hoping later on it wasn't a neck injury. And so I mean, Vince is fucking screaming at me in my face. And that was the worst fucking night of my career ever, because I was like, fuck, I fucked up. I really screwed up. I mean, there's times I put myself over, and a lot of times in these matches and all these matches I've done in my career. But this match, man, it definitely was one of my major fuck ups in my career. And and sometimes as a referee, you have to make that split decision. And you know what? Call it on your own when you think it's worse. But like I said, now moving forward with years to come after that, yeah, we definitely got trained, and we definitely had more authority to call a match when we needed to. That's for sure. And I did say to him, it was my fault, Vince. I'm so prone to finish these matches, to finish matches, and how many wrestlers are hurt, and how many fucking people get hurt. And they go, no, I'll finish, I'll finish, I'll finish. You sure you're okay? I'll finish. Let's just tell them to go home soon. We may cut the match shorter, but we go home. But 99% of the time, I'm trying to finish the match. We're trying to get the match completed. Whether there's injuries in there, whether I'm hurt, the boys are hurt. So just thank God. I mean, thank God at that point I didn't even lose my job. Thank God. I mean, because Vince was so fucking hot. I thought he was gonna fucking hit me, man. He was just so fucking hot in my face, and I look over and there's Stephanie sitting in the chair just watching everything.
What's her reaction?
It's like, and she just had a serious look on her face, like, yeah, you fucked up. You fucked up. You
Your
know,
fellow referees, any of your fellow referees around when Vince chews you
it
out?
it was no, nobody choose out. We're all feel bad for each other. I know they felt
No.
bad for me.
Were they around when Vince chewed you out?
No, no, no.
No one
I
was.
think they're because
Who was
I got
around?
called up to Gorilla, and the referees. I believe it was just me, Stephanie, Vince, whoever was working Gorilla. Was it Jerry Briscoe at that time in '07? Uh, I believe it was Jerry Briscoe. So it was bad. And they had to go into the next match, but Vince was waiting for me. Stephanie was there. I mean, I know the agents and everybody were meeting everybody in back of Gorilla, to where they come out with the stretcher and put her on the ambulance in the back. So I'm sure everybody was, the referees, the rest of the referees were there with her, and agents and so forth. Stephanie must have went by, back there after that, because I remember when Vince was chewing me the fuck out, I looked over and Stephanie's sitting there at Gorilla, just looking at me like fuck, just looking at me like, oh, look, with disgust. She was disgusted. So I mean, I was disgusted for making the wrong decision to try and complete the match, which I know. And after that, you live and learn. But unfortunately, I'm just glad that nothing was serious. She didn't get paralyzed. But this was such a fucking serious injury. You know, I think weeks later, yeah, that's what did her in a career with wrestling. You know,
She will return to
and
the ring
hmm
5 months from
months late,
now
right,
on
right,
March 17th, teaming up with Maria to defeat Jillian Hall and Victoria,
right.
and will re-injure her shoulder
I
and
remember.
break her clavicle in 4
Or
different places in her return
I know,
match.
I know, and that's what gets me. Usually, when you break a bone somewhere, you don't break the same bone, or you don't, and it just that kind of ended her career, man. I felt horrible. It was just that really sucked for her, because she was getting to be a really good talent in the ring. Great,
And the button on it all, she will miss WrestleMania 24's Playboy Bunny Mania Lumberjill
right,
match. That's
hmm
crazy.
right,
Mike, you get chewed out. You go back to your referee room, or who's the first
yeah.
person you tell that you got chewed out?
Duh. Anybody I seen, it was
I
just.
I
I mean, you can see a look on my face, man. I was just
right.
disgusted with myself. I made a
I
bad
imagine your
call.
fellow referees are
You know,
more than supportive for you to you,
yeah,
that
they are,
you
because
did what you knew.
it's just a hard decision. It's just, I talked to some of the referees and they felt bad too, and I was like, I kind of didn't really see that whole bump. It was just, because I looked over at Beth getting ready to get on a heel about doing that heel move to the ropes where crash and burn. But, it's just, when I seen it back and seen it back again and again, it was like, oh my God, because they were replaying it. And I believe they were replaying it on the screen too. And I did see it on the screen. I went, oh, what the fuck? But because like I said, it all happened in a split second, man. That's all. I mean, if you count the time from her hooking them feet to the top turnbuckle to hitting that floor, it was like a split second, man.
Right.
A split second. And just after getting chewed out by Vince, letting the company down, almost letting her down, Candice, I made the wrong call to Beth. I told Beth, to cover her. Like I said, I didn't know she was going to pull her out like that, but I made the wrong call, period. If I would have just stopped that match, Beth never pulls her out at all.
Final question.
Mm-hmm.
When did you end up talking to Candice again?
I texted her and stuff like that. I did text her to see if she was okay and all that other stuff. And, I didn't see her, until she came back when she was okay. Like she would come, if we were in LA, she would come by and I probably talked to her at that time, just texted her and make sure she was okay. And I'm sorry that happened and everything. And she was doing a great job in the ring, and she was like, no problem, Kiki. And I ran into her about a year ago, year and a half at a signing. And we had a great time, took some pictures together, and we just, it was love. It was great catching up. We talked a little bit about that match that day and, the ending her career in the wrestling business, and she was always looking to move on at that point too, to having a family. And, now she has, I believe like 3 kids maybe, and a beautiful family with Kenji and, and the same with Beth Phoenix and Beth and, Edge. They have a family together now, and it's so. I mean, but it was it was just sorry that happened to her. I and apologize. I apologized deeply. I didn't stop the match right away, and she was like, "No worries, it's not your fault, Kiki." She called me Kiki, but she was like, "It's not your fault, and shit happens." And I was like, "Man, girl, I'm just glad you're okay." 'Cause I loved her to death, man. She was a sweetheart all the way around, inside and outside the ring. Beautiful person.
And we will leave it at that. We would love to hear your feedback on tonight's show using the hashtag IREFB and at Watch on Premiere on Twitter and on Instagram and threads at Premiere Streaming Network. Use the hashtag IREFB. Mike, where can they find you online? Tell us about your store and what's coming up.
Yeah, and I got some. I got the Third Man in the Ring shirts out on Pro Tees and everything. You can catch me on Twitter
ProWrestlingTees.com.
Yeah, ProWrestlingTees.com, and you can catch me on Twitter at MJC Chioda, and on Instagram as well. And I got some things coming up in the works. Hopefully, some action figures that I've been waiting for a long time. We got some other things rocking and rolling. So I'm getting there. I got my new jerseys coming out, the MC patch and everything. So. Yeah, it's going to be a fun year this year, man. I got a lot of stuff in play.
Well, we're going to go a little bit lighter next week, Mike, when we review Undertaker versus Goldberg Super Showdown 2019 from Saudi Arabia.
Saudi Arabia.
That's going to be great. Thank you to our sponsor. Once again, Central States Wrestling. You can find them online at cswwrestling.com. For artist producer JD Hoop, music composer Nicholas Downing, and the great Mike Chioda. I'm Efren at Efren Blackjack. Thank you for joining us. We will see you next time for IREFB exclusively on Premiere Streaming Network.
One love, Efren.